What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by the Real Estate Cheat Code. I have Brad Fry with us today with Remax Achievers and Remax Platinum Remax Platinum's down in Florida. Remax Achievers is here in Columbus or in Central Ohio. So, Brad, thanks so much for jumping on with us today and to share your real estate story.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invite.
And I know we've probably done deals in the past over the years, but we don't really, know each other, one-on-one. So I'm excited to kind of learn a little bit about you today, outside of real estate and then obviously, within the business. But Brad, where we start off here on the Tell Me More podcast is growing up. We go back to the very, very beginning because I always find that there's usually, either key moments, life lessons, or things that happen right as we kind of grow up. So for you, what was life like growing up as a child? Were you born here, raised here?
Yep, actually, born and raised here in Columbus, Ohio. I went to public schools over at Columbus West High School and went to the Ohio State University and got a degree in political science. And actually, to expand on that, I actually was appointed by the county auditor here in Franklin County, and I spent about 7 years in that role.
Okay.
And that's kind of what got me into real estate because the auditor is in charge of the tax records.
Okay.
And, it was an opportunity that I took, and I've never looked back. And it's been 32 years now in real estate.
Well, walk me through, political science degree. What really had you go that direction right out of high school?
Uh, just briefly, when I was a junior in high school, I think I was smart enough to be vice president of every organization because the vice president didn't do anything except and the president had all the work. So I was lucky enough to go to what was called Boy State, where people involved in politics wanted to expand. They put two or three from each high school across the whole state of Ohio together. And we got to run mock governments and see how the whole political process worked. And ever since that time, I was kind of hooked on it.
And then so right after graduating college with that degree, that's when you got connected with the auditor?
Yeah, it was a couple years after that. I did some roles. I had some computer background. I did some programming for a little bit, and then this opportunity opened up to help run the data center for Franklin County. And the county auditor appointed me to be in charge of all the staff there, which was pretty big back then.
What made you actually think about the real estate side of things?
It just like being involved with the county auditor. It just, I knew I didn't want to stay at the government level for long because benefits are great, but if you have higher aspirations, it's kind of hard to achieve.
Yeah.
So I just enjoyed real estate. I enjoyed people, and being in politics, it was a kind of a good segue into real estate. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I got into real estate, if I would have known what I know now, I never would have done it.
What do you mean?
Back in the old days, nobody would share any secrets with you. It's not like today,
Yeah.
where you have teams and people mentor people, they coach, they help, and it's evolved a lot from 30 years ago. Back
Yeah.
then, it was a dog eat dog world, and you might go on a listing appointment, and the person after you might have 30 years experience and eat you up and chew you out and spit you everywhere, and that's just how the business was back then.
Yeah. Did you have any interest in real estate prior to that position with the auditor? Did
No,
you have
not
any?
really. I really hadn't thought about it. It just
Okay.
was one of those things that you had an aha moment, and you think like, I think I could do this. I think I might like this. And it was just like one of those moments that you say, I wish I would have had the aha moment 5 years earlier. Because you can't turn back the clock, but you're just saying, I'm glad I am where I am today.
Yeah. So when you decided, so what year did you actually get licensed?
Would have been 92.
Okay, 92. when you decided that I'm going to go sell real estate in 1992, did people think that you were crazy? Did you have supporters? Did you have doubters? Because a lot of times, in real estate, and this being in the business, a lot of times we're coming from different careers, right? Usually we're giving up I always use the air quotes, secured job, right? A W-2, a salary, pay every, 2 weeks, all those kind of things. But when you made that transition of like, hey, I'm going to go be a real estate agent, and oh, by the way, it's 100% commission-based business. Where did people around you fall? Supporters, doubters?
No, I think early on, you really don't have any support because all your peers view you as the enemy.
Mm,
And, you always have family support, but as far as industry support, that didn't exist back then.
yeah,
It was what could you make, whoever you worked for back then, were you an asset? Were you just dead weight? That's kind of how you were viewed. So it was a different perspective as, you know, 30 years ago, even 15 years ago, when industry kind of started shift changing. It was okay to be part of a group, a part of a team, part of a support system. You know, they say all we do is sell houses, but we do so much more than that.
yeah, yeah. And I believe, if I'm correct, 1992, is that right when buyer brokerage representation became a thing? It was around that time.
It was around that time, a little bit after that.
Yeah. It's
Because,
funny how 30
go
years
ahead.
later, we're having that same conversation.
Well, it's interesting, not to jump ahead, but like in Florida, they're so much further ahead than we are here in Ohio
Mm,
as far as getting ready for the change. I'm on actually the forms committee here on the CBR here in Central Ohio. So we haven't even addressed those issues yet. We're
yeah.
still working on trying to revise the contract that we're using.
It's a whole nother conversation.
Tell me about it.
So walk me through kind of, building your business in the beginning. How did you do it? What was the thought process? Obviously, that was a different time than to someone getting in today. But for you, like, how did you go about actually building the business within that environment of real estate at the time where you said it wasn't collaboration amongst other agents?
No, I think what I don't want to say. I always tell people you aren't lucky, but you make your luck.
Mm,
So I made my luck because back then new construction was just starting to take off in the early 90s, mid 90s. And realtors back then would say, well, I don't get paid for 6, 7, 8 months. Well, I'm not going to sell one of those. Well, light bulb went off in my head, and I said, well, if I sell one, two, three a month, 9 months from now, I get a paycheck. I sell three the next month, I get another paycheck. So really, I'm making sure I get paid a year from now. And I got lucky enough that I sold a ton of new construction.
mm.
And so once I filled that gap with resales up to that point, and then I added new construction. It was kind of like a snowball effect after the first couple years in the business. It just kind of took off on its own.
That is a giant hole in the industry that I completely missed for about the first 8 years of my career was new construction.
And it was probably one of the easiest ones because once you understood the new construction part of the business, you can compare it to the resale. And so then you became more valuable to your clients because you could show them both aspects of the business. And that's what people appreciated. And then during the new construction phase, you'd stay involved.
Yeah.
Like early on, the builders would say, all we're paying you for is to bring us a client, go away. And then once they realized that realtors who knew what they were doing weren't the enemy, they actually helped the process along, then they were more, I don't want to say sociable, but they were more open to us having that involvement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's one of the things, especially in our market here in Columbus and Central Ohio, it's going to be the thing that helps solve our inventory problem, right? So, if you're an agent and you're just focusing on the pre-existing market, which again, that was me the first 8 years of my career. Like I didn't just, for whatever reason, new construction was never top of mind. I don't know if it's because when I got in, I cut my teeth on foreclosures and short sales and, investors, but it was just never top of mind in Central Ohio. Now that's going to be part of our problem solving for lack of inventory moving forward. And so it's just could be a key to building your real estate business.
Yeah, and what I tell young agents now that, I do a little bit of coaching now and, and development of teams and so forth. But what I tell them is you have a license, a real estate license. Do you just sell your neighborhood? Do you sell the suburbs? Do you sell the city? Do you sell the whole state? You have so many pieces of bread to pick from in a basket. Don't just limit yourself to one. When the market crash, I was fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to be part of the market crash
Yeah.
back in 2006, 7, and 8. And I probably made more money during that time than I did before that time because I saw it coming. I said, we're giving loans to people who have no credit, they have no jobs. I said, how are they ever going to pay these bills? So what I did, had a group of investors, and instead of selling one house to a client, I'd sell 3 or 4 to investors each month.
Yeah.
So they were cash deals. They were great. People jumped on them, and there's still those opportunities out there. They're just more selective and harder to come by because you have to add more variables into your formula to see if it's cost effective or not.
I'm always curious because I believe a lot of agents struggle in times of our industry when there needs to be a pivot within their business.
Hmm.
And obviously, people that I have on here that have been licensed and were in the business prior to 2006, 7, 8, and the crash and all that kind of stuff. What was it for you that, and I know it's kind of like a cliche answer, right? Well, I had bills to pay and all those things, but like for you, what was it that made you have to pivot, want to pivot? Because again, I think a lot of agents struggle with it, right? It's like, this is how I've always done business.
Well, and it goes back to what I said earlier. There's so many different pieces of bread in a basket. You don't like. Do I focus on one area at a time? Yeah, maybe because it's working. But am
Yeah.
I always aware of what may happen or the shift? If you ignore the shift, that's when you get into trouble. And a lot of realtors just say, all I do is sell resale houses. I don't work with investors. I don't work with new builds. I don't refer people out to other states. I mean, when I got involved with, CRS, the Council of Residential Specialists, and I was president in 2015 for the state of Ohio, I would refer business 5, 6, 7 deals a year out. Well, if you're making 25, 30% referral fee, that's pretty easy for making a phone call, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just said, we're fortunate. We have so many different paths that we can take to supplement our incomes. I mean, early on, 25 years ago, they did joint ventures, and I was part of one of those with a title company early on and still until today.
Yeah. Brad, walk me through the
No,
crash. Obviously, you switched to, working with investors, right? You saw that opportunity there. That's kind of where things were at.
yeah.
Kind of walk me through post that, right? Because I know we were talking beforehand and you had, you built a large team, then scaled that back. Walk me through that process of your growth in the business to the point of, okay, when did I make the decision that it was time to stop staying solo and I needed help and then to build a team? Because
Well, yeah, I guess the good thing and bad thing about being, I guess, successful is when I was working and selling new builds, smaller builders took notice. And they said, well, apparently he knows something about new builds. He can represent us, bring us clients, get us sales. And that's kind of what I did. I mean, I guess the biggest, uh, I guess, 2 people who took advantage of me was Lori Steiner and Doug Bohr. when they bought Trueberry Homes and decided to shift from residential sales in the suburbs to buying every piece of land down in the short north. And they never had worked with a realtor before, and they came to me and said, "We've never done this before. Here's what we want to do. Can you help us?"
Mm.
And for, I think, 2.5 years, I worked 7 days a week. I had people sitting in the models for my team. I was fortunate enough. I made a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
But then again, real estate can be all consuming, and you don't have much of a life outside of real estate. And that's that fine balance that I think you always have to have. Without that, you kind of get lost in the way, and you don't do your job right at some point. You just get worn out.
Do you agree with this that in real estate, it's not about the income that you make, but the lifestyle that you want to live?
Yeah, I don't.
I have this, like a lot of people, like I help a lot of agents get into the business, right? And they're like, well, I want to go and sell 50 houses a year and I want to make, $300,000 a year. But what I found is that most of the time people don't want to actually live the lifestyle that it's going to take in order to make that happen.
Well, it's funny you phrase it like that because the number one question I get is, "How many houses do you sell?" And I say, "I don't have a clue." And they go, "What do you mean I have a clue?" I go, "It doesn't matter how many houses I sell. It's how many people I help."
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it. And then they go, "Well, how much money did you make?" I said, "I don't know. It depends on how many houses I sold, and I don't know how many I sold." But what it comes down to when I coach, I tell people it's time. How much time do you have? And unless you make a change in how you work, there's no more time.
Hmm.
You know, for 3 or 4, maybe 5 years, it took me a while to figure this out. I can make within $10,000 every year of the same amount of money year after year after year. Well, the reason why is time. I only had so much time that limited my income. The only way I could open that up was to add people and roles to help free up my time to do what I do best, sell. So, the first step you take is you hire an administrator to help set up showings, do paperwork, follow up, stay in touch with your clients. Because when you're selling 10 to 11 homes a month, good luck on trying to follow up with everybody and then try to get more business. You just can't do it. So, you learn it's scary because you're trusting other people to help you build your brand. But once you get out of that window and realize that everybody's on the team, right? Everybody's working for the same goals, that fear kind of goes away. And really, you get some of your life back when you start to, add those parts to your business.
So for you, the team was out of necessity of helping with the builder connections and filling models.
Yeah, that and just keeping up with all the leads, you
Yeah.
know. Early on, and I don't know why I did this, but I hated Zillow for 5, 6, 7 years. And then a light bulb went off, and I said, "Well, let's see how their model is and how it works." So after some deep diving, I said, if you're in a top three in a neighborhood, they're connecting all the people to you directly on a phone call. And I sell one house, I pay for it for the whole year. So
Mhm.
luckily, the first house I sold was a $1.2 million house. It paid for Zillow for the whole freaking year. So, until Zillow got greedy and changed their business model, it worked for 4 or 5 years for me, and then they said, everybody gets a call, everybody's equal, no matter how much you pay. I said, well, that model doesn't work for me. I'm not paying. The cost per lead went up so much, it wasn't cost effective.
Yeah.
Like I said, and that's part of our business. There's so many people, third parties coming at us to get our monies to try to help our business, but are they really helping our business? So when I help people, I talk about CRMs, I talk about products that you can get affordably that don't break the bank. Because when you're starting off, you don't have any extra money. So that's what I try to do for newer agents. I said, hey, go sit in my open houses. I'll tag along just to watch how you work.
Well, and I think, what you shared already, as agents, we have to remain open-minded to potentially changes within the industry and within our own business, right? I mean, you just shared 2 or 3 different examples of how you moved and navigated the industry as there were changes, right? And obviously, it was new construction, and then it was investors, and then it was, okay, I got to play in the Zillow sandbox. And I know there's agents out there that absolutely hate, them, and don't like what they do. And then there's people like my team that we love it, right? And so and now we're moving into another environment and market, with buyer agreements and all of those things where we're going to have to be looking at our businesses again, and saying, okay, well, do I want to continue how I'm doing it? Do I need to change it? Where's the new opportunity? Is the opportunity that's been here, is it gone, or is it still here and now it looks differently?
So let me ask you a question. Everybody is so, I guess, fearful of the new regulation. And if you really look at it, what has really changed? I mean, the industry kind of self-regulated itself over the last maybe 5 to 6 years. You're seeing smaller brokerages offering different fees to co-ops, to listing agreements. We already had started that whole process. And I hate to say it, when attorneys are involved, they see, patterns. And so maybe for 50 years, there was a pattern of 99% of the time, the fee structure was this way.
Yeah.
But now the industry has shifted gears, and without even this lawsuit, it would have self-regulated itself anyways. And it is. And
Yeah.
so the biggest thing that I've always done is when buyer representation came out, I would take a client out and I said, hey, we got to meet each other, here's how this process works. You agree to work with me, but more importantly, I agree to work with you. And if I don't like you, I hate to tell you, we're not signing this agreement. It's just not that you have to like me. It works both ways.
Yeah.
So I said, and I've told these new agents, they go, well, I don't feel comfortable doing this. And I said, you better start feeling comfortable, because the first time you lose $1 million deal because a builder or a for sale by owner says, I'm not co-oping, it'll get your attention real quick.
I think we've all been burned, but to answer your question, I don't think much will change for the people that have operated with buyer agreements. I think a lot will change for the people that have been totally against them and didn't believe that their clients needed to sign them.
Well, I think it's important. A lot of people don't understand the concept. And I
Yeah.
think we were our own worst enemies by not explaining how we work. It is kind of odd that if you work a W-2 job, you don't go to your I guess your friends or your coworkers and say, I make $32,000 a year. Why do you get paid 6,000 on a transaction?
Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, well, 40% of it goes to taxes. I don't get all that. Then I got business expenses. So at the end of the day, do I make 35% of my money? But they just see that one number on a closing statement and they can't get past that number.
Right.
So I think this whole educational process is a step that's needs to be forced on everybody, old agents, new agents, everything. And I think it's good for our industry.
I agree with you. And I also believe that it now creates more of a quote unquote free market, because I think there will be agents that will absolutely crush on the buy side because they're delivering a higher value of service. And I think, they could possibly even charge more, right? Depending on, because again, it's all value, right? It's whether or not the consumer sees value in what they're paying.
So you brought up a good point. So if you don't see any value in what you offer, therefore you're going to be uncomfortable with explaining it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what you're going to see with newer agents, because they don't see any value that they give yet.
And I think even experienced agents, they don't know how to really articulate the value, right? Like sometimes you mentioned this multiple times, we're our own worst enemies, and we try to always keep it so high level, like we need to actually simplify it and break it down and show them, here's what you're going to get if you decide to work with me as your real estate agent, whether it's on the listing side or the buy side. Here are the 70 items, right? And some of those are going to be small items, some of those will be medium-sized items, and some of those will be large items potentially. And it's not just you, but then you compound that with your builder connections, your title company, your lender, right? And everyone else in your circle, your contractors, all of that all adds on. And here's what I'll share. Like on the buy side, I was always just taught, when I'm talking to leads, Brad, if I could save you tens, if not thousands of dollars as we go through this home buying process, would that be of importance to you?
And of course, they're going to say yes, right? But
right.
then they're going to doubt what you're saying.
Let me show you how I do that for you,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just me as the agent, but it's all of those other people that I just brought into the picture, right? Are you recommending the right home inspectors that truly do a great job, that don't scare clients, but are very informative, so that way the buyers have a clear understanding of what's going on with the property, right? Are you working with a radon company that truly gives, the best service and the best rates with installs, right? And so I truly believe that to the core, that when you work with me, you do and will save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars as we go through this process.
Yeah, and I tell people, all of us want to work with people we know and we trust.
Mhm.
And we have the golden ticket because we work with all those people you mentioned, from lenders to title people to lawyers. I mean, our pool, our sphere of influence is so large. People naturally say, I trust you, then I trust them. So really, you're given an. It's hard to say how much value in dollars that is, but it's one of those unknown values that you're bringing to your clients, and they don't know it. Like today, I got a call, and the guy goes, "I can't paint my deck before closing. I know I have to. Do you have a painter?" I called my painter, and he goes, "Okay, I'll stop this job to do your job." But it's just like he couldn't find a painter to help him out.
Yeah.
But it's those things. Well, you don't get paid to do that. Why do you do those things? Well, that's unfortunately that's one of the job requirements that we take on, is being realtors, which I
Yeah.
never understood what we're called that, but that's okay.
Yeah, me neither. I'm there with you. Brett, what made you want to do business down in Florida?
I've always wanted to. My parents spent probably 6, 7 months a year down there, and I tried to take it online during COVID. I was busy doing flips. That's, I do my own thing too on that side, and I never got it done. So, luckily or unluckily, I'm a high school basketball official for 30 years, and I strained my Achilles, didn't quite tear it, but laid me up. So I said, well, I'm in a boot for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I said, why don't I just go down and take it in person? So it was actually one of the hardest tests. I had to take 160 hours of classroom, pass that classroom test, and probably 5, 6 people failed. And until you pass that, you can't take the state test. But actually, how they do that to become a broker in Florida, you have to know everyone's jobs inside and out. You have to know how to calculate mortgages. You have to know how to do a closing statement from a title company. You have to calculate millages. You have to know everyone's job inside and out. And it really enlightens you to how complicated our business is. And I always laugh, I don't mean to ramble, but I always laugh when people say, wow, I want your job. And I go, well, you want my job because I make it look easy. Go talk to 99 other people and they'll say how much they don't like their job. But I said, over the years, hopefully you learn something from your mistakes. And that's what I tell everybody. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. it'll happen. Know how to correct yourself and get out of your mistakes.
How has it been navigating business in two different states that far away?
I jump back on a plane Sunday because I'm showing houses Monday, Tuesday. I fly back Thursday because I'm working here Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So luckily, I can get a 2-hour flight pretty quick.
So you are full
I
year
am.
both places.
I am. Yeah, and actually, I got another agent from Ohio who lives down in Florida, and he's going to sit for his test and hook up with me and join my team down there. So it's a lot easier when you have team members. I can be more flexible in my schedule.
Sure.
And when I do my coaching, I can coach anywhere. Like every 2 weeks when I do my coaching, I talk to whoever the realtor is. Like right now, I have one in Mississippi who's a broker that I'm working with, and I have a gentleman in Texas I'm working with, and one in Florida. So I people go, well, why do you coach? And I said, well, apparently I must know something, or people wouldn't want to call me. And I do it real low key because I don't want it to be all time consuming. But if I could help 4 to 5 to 6 people and they only take up an hour of my time every 2 weeks, I'm willing to give that back.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to do. I mean, I'm on the grievance committee for OAR, which is a new thing this year, where the state's taking over the grievance part of it. And I'm on whatever the forms committee. I don't know. I wanted to be able to, at a point in my career, give back uh, some of my expertise and knowledge to be part of the overall system instead of just selling real estate and making money.
Yeah. I want to kind of switch gears and kind of look into the future of where you kind of want to go with your business. What's a goal that you have here in the next year?
People always ask, "Hey, when are you going to retire?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. You can come to my funeral, and I guess I'll be retired." So our jobs are great because you can work as little or as much as you want. You can enjoy as much or as little of as you want. And I just want our jobs are so flexible. And you know as well as I do, if you have your phone, that's your lifeline.
Yeah.
People don't care where you're at, what you're doing, as long as they can get a hold of you and be assured that their problems are going to be taken care of. And that's the key. And you fill in the gaps now with your team members, and they play a role. They get brought up to speed. They're an asset, and then they have their careers. I always tell people when you join my team, if you're on my team 2 years from now, I did something wrong. My goal is to have you stand on your own 2 feet, be as successful as I am. And it's funny because you see some teams that are 30, 40 people. And I go, well, I don't know if that's really a team. That's a structure. Do those people really thrive, or do they just help the team leader?
Yeah.
So I just have a different philosophy. I can always reload, and that's what I do. But I like people to take that next step.
That's awesome. What's a 5-year goal for you?
Mm, I think I want to do a little bit more on the commercial side, because my investors are leaning towards, not just multifamily, but multi-building, 60, 70 unit buildings. So you're fortunate enough, you stick around long enough, you get that clientele, and those deals take longer to put together, but they're more rewarding, I think, in the end. And I don't need to do the daily grind of real estate day in and day out. I can concentrate on more, a big deal here, a big deal there, and then have the people on my team kind of fill in, going showing houses, me offering my expertise on the contracts, negotiations, those type of things where I don't have to grind to make the dollar every day. I provide an asset, and they bring in the money.
Yeah.
I think that's all our goals, right? Have
It
somebody
is.
else make you money.
Exactly. Right. Leverage within the business. And I think honestly, that's one of the hardest things that agents can um, do at a high level, right? I think some people get it to the extent of I need a transaction coordinator, right? But at the end of the day, if you truly want to build a business, I always tell people the CEO of a major company is not also checking you out at the cash register,
That's right.
right? And
I think that
so,
was my point that I got around to sharing is, you know, I don't want to do everybody's job for them.
yeah.
You have to realize what level you're at and what you offer and how deep you get in.
But you have to be open to the idea of, like you said, other people taking over some of those areas of your business as well. And I think that's a rub with a lot of agents. It's, well, if I do it, I know it's done and it's done my way and it's done the right way. And I always argue, well, if you have a team member that's working on your behalf and they're not doing it your way, well, then that's a you problem, not a them problem, because you're the ones that are actually training them.
So the phrase "get over yourself"
Yeah.
is one that I use a lot.
Yeah.
I always say, hey, when you're dead and gone, the world still spins.
Yeah.
So get over yourself and deal with things. And somebody else might have a better way of doing it than you've been doing for
Mhm.
10 years. And like you said, I think the successful people in our business are the people who are open-minded.
Yeah.
And you have to be that way.
Yeah. Brett, what's a legacy goal for you?
You know, I think people I don't really think about a legacy goal. I think your legacy is defined by what you do and accomplish and how people think of you. I mean, to me, that's, if no one has a bad word to say about me, they probably don't know me very well. But I mean, at the end of the day, you could say that he was somebody in the business who we enjoyed doing business with. His clients loved him, and at the end of the day, he did it the right way. And I think that's the legacy you kind of want to leave.
Last question for you. If you could give our audience one piece of advice, maybe it's something that you were told early on, or something that maybe you just share now. You coach agents, you talk to a lot of agents. What would that piece of advice be?
I guess the best advice is not to get disappointed. I mean, part of growing is to have that disappointment, but don't let that define you. Turn the page. It's a new day, a new chapter. Tackle it. And then the key thing is, I think you have to learn when you make those mistakes how not to make them again. And how do you become better at what you do? So every day I tell people, every day I wake up, I kind of know what's going to happen, but three or four things will happen that you didn't even think would ever happen, or you get a phone call about something. And those are the things that make our jobs the most exciting jobs out there. Maybe sometimes difficult, but it's exciting. So
Yeah.
you just have to, we roll with more things in our business than I think anybody, because we have to. They trust us, they depend upon us. And at the end of the day, that's how our business is run.
Yeah. Brad, thanks again for jumping on here and sharing your story, your journey. Brad's phone number is down below. Those that are watching, his phone number is down below. If you're a buyer, seller, investor, a real estate agent, if you connected with his story and him, please reach
Or if
out.
you want to harass me, the number's there.
Or if you want to call and harass him, the number's there. Brad, what just for the maybe people the audience in Florida that might listen to this, what part of Florida do you serve? And
Well, actually, believe it or not, the Stellar MLS goes all the way from Tampa, all the way down to Fort Myers, and all the way over to Orlando. So it covers one of the biggest MLS areas in the whole United States. I think my first transaction was with a group of lawyers dealing with, of course, an estate sale in Tampa. And I had 54 offers in the first 48 hours. And talking
wow.
about having a bad weekend. You know, the sun's 80 degrees outside and I'm in the office cranking away on offers. But so some things never change in real estate,
Yeah.
except the weather. The weather's a little bit nicer down there.
Brad, for those that are listening in that want to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, I mean, you can call my cell, text me, and if you text me, I'll get back. That's 614-402-1158 number. And no question is a bad question. I tell people, if you have a question, then it's valid for you. So don't be scared to reach out. I'm here. I'd be more than willing to talk with you.
Awesome, Brad. Thanks again so much. And, we're going to stay connected. We'll talk again here soon.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.